I love you.
You can't.
Damn it, don't tell me I can't. I want to marry you.
Look, I think we better talk about this in the morning.
You should lock your door. I still want to marry you.
Holy hell, Bill!
Good to see you, Harry. It's great to be on the ground.
I'll bet it is. How in the hell did you fly over them damn mountains with a busted engine like that?
With some difficulty.
I should have known. When I heard that chaff cutter, bound to be one of you crazy guys. How's Chubbie?
Fine.
Where is she?
Well, she's back in Miami. I'll tell you all about it when I've checked on my passenger. I don't think he's feeling too well.
Where are we?
Guadalupe, Texas, pump station.
This is Harry Middleton, an old friend.
I could have been killed.
Lucky you weren't.
That maniac flew over that range of mountains there.
He had to. This is the only landing strip for 100 miles around here. You're lucky you picked a good pilot, mister, or you'd be dead. Not a happy man.
Oh, no. He's going to be a hell of a lot less happy in a minute.
Yeah. Guadalupe pump station. I'll get him. You called Arizona.
About time. Tell JF to meet us in El Paso. Estimate we could lose a few days over this.
Correction. We're going to lose weeks.
What? Don't be ridiculous.
The engine's a write-off. Ask Harry.
Yeah. And Arizona's hanging on the line.
Is that you, JF? Oh, swell to talk to you. Oh, great flight so far. But we may be held up a week or so, one or two minor repairs.
You got yourself into something here, pal.
I think you might be right. trouble is, they're such liars. Russell tells me one thing, Tankrel another. The plane, at least, is almost ready after all these weeks. Though whether they can pay for the repairs or the hotel bills or anything remains to be seen. How is the book progressing? Almost finished, I hope. Things are wretched here. But I forced Tankrel to give me $5. And don't laugh. It'll buy some food or put petrol in the car.
Don't.
Is it me? Something I've done or haven't done? The book. I'm afraid there I have a mental block.
So that's what it's called. Not a page in all these weeks. Not a line. Not a bloody word. But if you think that's why I cried, don't you flatter yourself.
Is it Bill? Do you still love him? Did you love him?
Yes.
Well, that's why you cried. You don't care for him anymore.
I cried because he sent me $5, if you have to know. I cried because we loved each other so much for so long. We've got nothing to show for it except $5 that he had to humiliate himself for.
You watch this pair. Remember what I told you?
Right.
It's a change of plans, Bill. I'll be flying with you.
I'll be bringing the car onto Nogales.
And don't forget we owe Harry for his time, his spares, and all the rest of it.
I'll look after Harry.
Yes, we'll just see that you do, will you?
You just get to Arizona and leave the details to me.
Goodbye, old friend.
Take care, pal, you hear? Watch him. $68. That includes the telephone calls and a tank full of gas.
Did I ever tell you I'm a nephew by marriage to the governor of California?
Bill said no checks. Cold, hard cash.
Harry, I'm gonna offer you something better than cash. I'm gonna let you have stock in our company, the Latin American Airways Corporation.
What are you doing?
I've been making some notes. All I can remember about my early life and meeting Bill, the flight to Australia. Well, I've been trying to help, seeing you won't settle down to work.
I don't write to order. I'm not a machine. Here, I want some money playing poker. Just don't tell me how and what to write. I'm waiting.
For what?
For inspiration.
Lousy, lazy bastard. Why won't you work?
Here, try a reefer. You'll feel better. Oh, God. Chubbie. I'm sorry. Forgive me.
God.
Tanker should be here in the morning.
Then what?
All systems go.
This whole nightmare trip's been a bloody disaster.
Sheer bad luck.
I've got to have some money to send back to Chubbie. God knows how she's managing.
Well, we've all got to hang on. Things will get better. Has Chubbie written to ask for some money?
I know she needs it.
She hasn't written. Well, I guess they're busy with the book. Look, I'm sure she's thinking of you. Okay, Bill, you're supposed to be good, maybe the best, so I'm told. Do you think you could put the Curtis Robin down over there and take off again?
What kind of cargo?
People.
What kind?
Let's cut the crap and get to the point. We fly Chinamen in from Mexico into the States.
Forget it.
Each Chinaman pays us $1,000. Each one carries a suitcase full of marijuana, and that fetches 30 grand in San Francisco.
I said forget it.
Like hell, that's what this is all about. That's what it's always been about.
Take it easy, Russell. You come on too strong. Bill's a flyer. He's an honest guy, but he needs money. Let's go back to the hotel and talk this over like friends. You keep saying you won't fly. Are you scared? Don't you trust us? I can't think why. I know a lot of very important people.
Shut up, Tankrel.
Look, Bill, it's so easy. We fly certain people from Mexico to a remote spot in Arizona. These people carry the dope. Then other people sell the dope. We just provide a ferry service and make $100,000 each in 3 months.
I've no doubt we could. But no.
I don't understand this. I've never had this kind of complication before.
I'm going back to Miami.
Like hell you are. You're not flying anywhere. That plane belongs to us by contract. All you want to do is run home and see your woman.
Well, that's enough, Russell.
You poor jerk. You're the only one who doesn't know it. You've lost her. You've lost her. She's fallen for Hayden.
Get out of my room.
They're screwing you, dumb limey.
You're a liar.
I got a letter that says so.
Keep your filthy letter. I don't want to read it.
You want to read it. You want to read it so bad you can hardly wait for us to leave the room. Come on, Tankrel. We won't humiliate the man. You want to keep your woman. You need something to offer her. If you got money, she'll come running. Read the letter.
so clever.
Yes, hello. What time is it now in Miami? 10 p.m. It's all right, I'll hold on.
One trip, one plane load of Chinamen. We don't smuggle in the dope, they carry it.
Yes, hello. Yes, I'll try again later, thank you.
No. You dumb bastard. We'll make a fat profit and you'll go home a hero. Money will buy her back if you still want her.
¿Qué te pasa, gringo?
That was a fool thing to do. JF's a man who holds a grudge.
What do you want?
I've had word the FBI are sniffing around. Can you fly me out of here tonight? Just me. And you, of course.
Impossible.
Why?
The plane has no lights, no way of seeing the controls. I'd be flying blind.
Dangerous?
We'd crash for certain.
Tomorrow, then. Dawn.
Coffee. 1 sugar.
What ungodly hour is it?
Midnight. You're beautiful. I love you. And I'm going to marry you, aren't I?
Yes.
Before Bill gets back?
No. I can't do that.
He's got no special claim on you. It could be weeks. We could clear out.
Hayden, I have to wait to tell him.
Where the hell did you come from?
Regardless.
That means you flew all night. Oh, you crazy son of a bitch.
Why we don't eat him, I'll never know. We've been existing on scraps for days.
Nobody eats Oscar. Hayden, what's wrong? Apart from hunger, I mean.
Nothing.
Come on, you've been on edge all week.
There are some things I have to tell you, and I don't know how.
About you?
Yeah.
Then let's sit down somewhere and talk.
First, before we do, there's this. It's to you. From Bill. I opened it.
Then perhaps you should read it.
I thought it might upset you. That's
Read it!
Winging it slowly home. Whatever the truth, hold your plans till I get there.
Insist on being best man and best friend to you both, whichever way it goes. Love, Bill.
He said 4 o'clock. He's 2 hours late.
That means nothing. Well, there's probably headwinds.
Oh, I forgot. You two have shared so many hours in the air together.
Well, we have. And nothing will ever alter that.
We should have published our engagement like I wanted before he came back. Once we got that last telegram from St. Louis, we should have announced it. That's what I wanted.
Look, you know there are 2 good reasons why we can't.
Oh, he'd like this, wouldn't he? We're fighting. That's why he's been phoning and sending us messages at every stop, asking us to wait, telling us he'll be best man. All that bullshit!
Hayden! Please don't. Please.
You won't ditch me.
No, I won't ditch you.
You better realize I love you. And he's not going to stop me from marrying you.
Hello, my darling. I've missed you. Hello, old man.
Bill,
Well, shall we go? The whole thing was a con. Tankerel was never in the Navy. They had no legitimate cargoes.
Do you think the FBI will catch them?
After the ride they gave me, I certainly hope so. All they wanted was the Curtis Robbins smuggled immigrants. A plane like that, perfect for it. Easy to land, good range, airspeed.
Will you quit talking about aircraft?
Why?
You know damn well that shuts me out. You're trying to win her back.
Hayden, stop it.
Planes are something that we happen to love and have in common. And as for trying to win her back, well, you really can't blame me for that.
Will both of you stop it?
That's something we've so far managed to avoid, Eadie. The fact that I trusted you. And you really let me down.
I resent that. I resent it. You've got no God-given rights. She's not your property. How dare you come back here and behave as if we're naughty children?
Hayden!
You had 5 years, and what did you ever give her? A load of debts and not much else. Not even your name, you sanctimonious son of a bitch!
Will you stop it?
I'd better get out of here.
Yes, you bloody well better!
No! When you go, you've got no money. Oh, Lord, I can't let it in like this!
It's ended, damn it! She's marrying me!
Are you?
I just told you she is!
I want to hear it from Chubbie.
Hayden, please. Yes, I am going to marry him. But we can still have the plane. We can fly together as partners.
That won't work!
Oh, can you make a living? At cards, perhaps, not by writing.
We should have been married by now before you came back. That's what I wanted.
Hayden thought his divorce was through, and it's not.
We could have taken the chance. It would have been legal in this state. Just so long as we didn't go to California.
I doubt that. You were wise not to risk anything of that kind, darling.
Let's leave my divorce out of it.
Yes, let's. Because there's another reason why we can't.
What reason?
It's none of your goddamn business! Where are you going?
If it's any of your business, out for a walk. I can only take so much of a friend like you, Hayden. After that, I start to feel sick.
You're acting like a spoiled baby.
And he's the grown-up.
Stop acting so stupid!
I'm scared I'll lose you. I am. I'm afraid. I think I'm going. Promise me you'll lock your door.
I never lock it, you know that.
Promise tonight. I don't want him coming into your room.
Right. I promise.
Chubbie? Chubbie, it's me.
I know, Bill.
Good night.
Where did you get the gun?
From Houston, the attorney.
Is it loaded?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Can we talk? There are some things I want to tell you.
Chubbie, wake up! A terrible thing's happened. Hayden shot himself.
What?
Hayden shot himself. Do what you can. I'll call a doctor. Yes, 2321. Southwest 21st Terrace. Coral Gables. A doctor and an ambulance. Please hurry. Is he conscious?
Oh, God, why? Why?
Talked. He told me he knew he'd lose you. He told me he'd lied about his age, his writing, his divorce. Have you seen this? He left a note. Did you hear me? Well, shall I read it?
Yes, read it.
Chubbie, darling, I can't make the grade. I can't go on. You have Bill. Don't let him leave you again. Better tear it up.
Oh, you can't do that.
Yes, we can. It's personal to you. Destroy it.
It's evidence. Leave it. Don't die. Please don't die.
Bullet hole, right temple. Bruising, right arm and shoulder. No trace of powder burns. Time of death, 11:20 a.m., April 21st, 1932. Okay? Thank you.
The Office of the State's Attorney has held in custody and questioned Captain William Lancaster and Mrs. Jessica Miller over the death by shooting of Hayden Clark. We have no reason to believe any prior knowledge of the shooting by Mrs. Miller. While certain doubts exist, there is no real evidence to press any charges against Captain Lancaster. I am therefore authorizing his release.
Mr. Miller, how about a say-so? Would you care to make a statement? How long will you be staying in Miami? Would you care to make a statement? Captain Lancaster. Wait. Mrs. Miller, Mrs. Miller. Captain Lancaster. Captain Lancaster, sir. Captain Lancaster. No officer. Please, you meant suicide? What happened there? Where's the gun?
Bill, will you swear to me you didn't kill him?
I didn't kill him. But there is something I lied to you about. It's on my conscience. I've got to tell you.
Perhaps you shouldn't.
I have to. Hayden didn't write that suicide note. I did.
So, after discussions with Mrs. Miller, you decided to voluntarily change your statement.
I have.
The suicide note was typed by you and signed by you.
Yes.
Why?
When I switched on the light and found that Hayden had shot himself, I panicked. My only thought was that Chubbie would think I had done it. I sat at the typewriter and composed that note. I tried to get him to sign then, but I couldn't arouse him. So I signed it myself. It was for her eyes, nobody else's. Afterwards, I felt ashamed. I wanted to destroy it. She wouldn't agree. I'd boxed myself into a situation I couldn't handle. It was dishonest, stupid, even callous. But I didn't kill him. To be some more questions, they'll go. Go home. Get some rest.
Mrs. Miller, that's good advice. You can't help.
So what's gonna happen?
There's no choice. He faked the suicide note. We have to indict him for murder.
Mrs. Miller, I'm obliged to give you some good advice. Go home.
What?
Go home to Australia.
Now?
You told me yesterday your parents cabled money for your fare.
Yes?
Use it. You're free.
I'll be a witness.
In the U.S., a witness can leave the jurisdiction of the state and there's no law can recall him.
Just skip. Walk out on Bill.
I've got to be honest. He hasn't a snowball's chance in hell. You stay. You're gonna be hit with so much dirt, it'll bury you.
And if I run out, it will certainly bury him.
You don't care for the notion?
I think the notion stinks, Mr. Houston, and no credit to you for suggesting it.
Kinda what I thought you'd say. Felt I should point out how rough it'll be.
Now can we talk about getting him a lawyer? The best possible.
Well, there ain't much doubt about who the best is. Jimmy Carson's the best. James M. Carson, he's the best. And he knows it. And you're gonna need a mint of money.
Mr. Carson, Mrs. Miller.
Sit down, Mrs. Miller. It's kind of warm for early summer.
It was good of you to see me, Mr. Carson.
Well, I'm not so sure. I nearly had Janice call you and say don't come.
Why?
I guess you heard. I don't lose cases.
Well, that's the reason I'm here.
It's a reputation built up over 20 years. I don't risk it lightly. I have to tell you, from what I've read, I wouldn't touch this case. He's as guilty as hell. I'm sorry. It would be fair to call you.
Then you believe what you read in the newspapers?
Not always.
Yes, you do. Where else could you have got such an expert opinion? Do you know that state officials have been leaking those half-truths and innuendos and slanders to the press? What kind of American justice is that, Mr. Carson?
Now hold your horses.
Oh, well, look at this. Lancaster should burn, says J.F. Russell of Latin American Airways. Well, let me tell you, J.F. Russell is a shyster and a crook.
Ooh, there, steady.
You make me sick. You and your reputation.
Mrs. Miller. Now hold on. Are you telling me that you think that he is innocent?
I know he is.
Even though you're engaged to the deceased? Even though... Miami Herald, day after Clark died, quote, "All my hopes are dashed. We were to be married next month." Did they make that up?
No, I said it.
And even though you said it, you say that Lancaster is innocent?
I know he is.
Yes? Yes, this is Sister Red Rose. Very well. Listen carefully and report me accurately. My son is innocent. No one who knows him would believe him guilty for one moment. His character has always been of the highest. His only failing in our eyes is his choice of a most unsuitable companion.
Sure is hot up here. It's gonna be one hell of a summer. The only thing to be said for the cells in Dade County, they got a great view.
I could do without it.
I guess. Did you kill him?
No.
You and Mrs. Miller must be the only two who believe that. You're quite a lady.
How is she?
Real pretty and angry.
At me?
No. Me. At the world.
They won't let me see her.
It's for your own protection. She'll be a witness.
Please. Tell her I miss her.
Sure. There was no autopsy.
What?
No post-mortem. The state didn't request an autopsy. That's a strange omission.
Why?
Well, a scientific examination of the skull might have shown if the pistol was fired by the deceased or by some other person. It might help you, or it might be very dangerous.
The question is, how do you feel about an autopsy being carried out?
Is the coroner's report for us or against us?
Well, put it this way. It hasn't hurt us. We'll have our experts. They'll have theirs. Experts cancel each other out.
So why did you?
Ask him to agree to an autopsy. Well, I guess if he refused, there's nothing in the world that'll make me take this case.
Thank you, Mr. Carson.
I don't thank me until you hear what I got to say. It'll be a fight. I gotta tell you that. It'll be tough. It's that damn suicide note. Make no mistake, he's in one hell of a spot. He's got everything against him. He's a foreigner. He's left his wife. American boy is dead. As far as the people here are concerned, he's guilty. They want to see him burn. Our defense, our only hope is that Hayden Clark shot himself. He's unstable, depressed because of you. I've got to make you the Scarlet Woman. Drag it all out. Every intimate detail.
Well, everything.
Can't spare you. It's perhaps the only thing that can help Lancaster. To get the sympathy of the jury for him, I've got to make every person in that court despise you.
Oh, the newspapers will have a field day.
They'll distort your whole life. You won't be left with a shred of dignity. But in my opinion, it's the only chance he's got.
Very well, Mr. Carson. If there's no other way, do it.
Hey, Limey! Hey, Limey, you hear me? You ain't answering me, pal. You're gonna cry. I bet you're getting nervous, sonny boy. Hey, Limey, listen to me.
Why bother with exercise? The next big walk's the electric chair.
Get relaxed, fella.
Furthermore, my client has, for almost 3 months, been kept in a remand cell. In a space 6 feet by 10 feet, without recourse to friends or acquaintances, in virtual solitary confinement. And now the state requires a further 2 months to prepare its case. It's a scandal. It's without parallel in my experience of injustice. It stinks. Strike out the last 2 words.
Bastard!
Why in God's name did she do this?
My idea. I know it's lurid.
It's filth. Absolute muck. It humiliates.
It helps the case.
Your case.
Bill! The facts are live to bring witnesses and to hire investigators. The defense needs money. The state has a whole army of people trying to put you in the chair. To combat that is an expensive business. Now, this is how she helps to pay for your trial.
Filthy, dirty bitch. Why don't you go back to where you came from? We don't want you or your kind in this country. You're a foreign state.
seconds, Jack.
Okay, you guys, can the noise!
Wait for it.
This is Jack Weir on our direct landline broadcast from the actual courtroom, where tomorrow a trial that promises to be one of the most sensational ever known in Florida will take place. Here on the 6th floor of the Dade County Courthouse building, wire grills are being erected to control the huge crowds expected to jam this room. And for the first time, noiseless telegraph machines are installed to bring news of the event to the waiting world.
The facts are well known. British air ace William Newton Lancaster stands accused of a brutal and cowardly murder. Australian aviatrix Chubbie Miller, one of the world's top flyers, will be a key witness. She will tell of wild drinking parties and tangled and adulterous love affairs.
If the photographers will sit down, the bailiffs can admit members of the public.
Okay, 10 at a time. Come on. Now take it easy. Now don't shove.
Relax. It's a circus. You have to try not to be the clowns.
The state will prove premeditation. Will show that the accused returned to Miami with but one objective: to murder his rival for the affections of Mrs. Miller. The defense will claim that to shoot a sleeping man was the act of a coward, and William Newton Lancaster is not a coward. That may be so. But obsessive love and burning jealousy were the emotions driving Lancaster. He was not rational the night he forged the suicide note and then deliberately and wantonly slew the deceased. That is the act of a cold and calculating man. Doctor, you are Carl C. Diedere, physician and medical examiner of this county.
I am.
You have served in this capacity for the past 11 years.
Yes, sir.
Please tell the court, in your own words, of the events of the night of April 21st.
I was called to the house at Coral Gables in the early hours of the morning. It was just after 2 a.m. An emergency call had been received asking for a doctor and an ambulance, and it appeared a shooting had taken place, and...
We accept that a shooting took place, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Carson. But I would prefer that the witness not be interrupted.
Apologize to the court.
Please continue, Doctor.
Yes. Where was I? Oh, yes. I arrived at the house at approximately 2:25. The deceased had been shot and was unconscious. I treated him and ordered his removal to the hospital. He died the following morning of massive brain injury due to a gunshot wound.
Thank you, Doctor.
Dr. Diedere, while you were attending to Hayden Clark, was he at any time able to speak?
No, he was unconscious throughout.
Cast your mind back, Doctor. Did Captain Lancaster say he wished that Clark could speak?
I believe he did.
Did he say he wished he could speak so he could tell you what happened?
Yes, he did say that.
Thank you, Doctor.
On the other hand, anyone can say...
I said thank you, Doctor. That's all.
Lancaster was edgy for weeks. Chubbie wasn't writing to him. He kept asking for mail and trying to call her, but she was never home.
And did you then show him a letter from your wife?
I did.
And what did that letter say, Mr. Russell?
That Hayden was screwing. That they were always ginned up and Hayden was sleeping with Chubbie.
And what did Lancaster do then?
He got madder than hell. He said, I'm going to get rid of the son of a bitch.
You're a witness.
You are the J.F. Russell who told newspaper reporters some 6 months ago Lancaster should burn?
I was misquoted.
Did you propose to my client that he smuggle drugs and illegal immigrants into the United States?
Never.
Misquoted again?
Correct.
Mr. Russell, did you 3 years ago serve a term in the federal penitentiary at Leavenworth?
Yes.
For what?
Shipping a cartload of hay to El Paso.
Weren't there a few Syrians concealed in that hay?
So they said. I didn't know they were there.
Where have you come from, Mr. Russell?
Come from?
I'll simplify the question. Have you been brought here from jail? And is that man beside you a law officer?
Yes.
That's all. Step down.
Bill was in a terrible state after he read that letter. He swore to me he'd kill Hayden Clark.
You're quite certain of that?
Oh, yes. He meant it. The moment he found out Chubbie was two-timing him, the kid was as good as dead.
We won't object to that, Your Honor. Mr. Tankrell?
Yes.
Or is it Commander Tankrell or Commodore Tankrell or, dare I suggest, Admiral Tankrell?
I never claimed to be an admiral.
Have you ever served in the United States Navy?
No.
Have you ever been convicted of impersonating a naval officer?
Yes.
You're present living in a federal prison?
Objection!
Your Honor, if the state brings jailbirds to testify, proven liars with malicious intent, we are at least entitled to know their present address.
Order! Mr. Carson, that was a most improper remark.
I apologize to the court. You'll be called tomorrow. Now the state will declare you a hostile witness to try and prejudice your evidence. All you gotta do is tell the truth.
So how long will I be in the box?
All day, maybe the day after. Get a good rest.
Good night. Good night, Mrs. Miller.
I hope she's still talking to me after it's over.
Raise your right hand. Place your left hand on the Bible. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
You may be seated.
You are Mrs. Jessica Beveridge Miller, of Australian nationality.
Yes.
You are a divorced person.
Yes.
Were you engaged to the defendant, William Lancaster?
We had an understanding. I did hope to marry him.
He was already married, was he not?
Yes.
The father of 2 small girls.
Yes.
This understanding lasted for several years.
Almost 5 years.
And during this time, you cohabited. You lived together and slept together in various parts of the world.
We did travel a great deal, yes.
Answer the question, please.
Yes, we did live together.
And when did your infatuation for Lancaster change?
It wasn't infatuation.
It wasn't. Then what would you call it, Mrs. Miller?
It was a kind of love, a comradeship. We'd shared a lot of things together.
Including your bed.
We'd been in the skies together and in the gutter. Almost wealthy a few times and often broke. We had a bond. It's the only way I can describe it. A bond.
A bond. But despite this bond, you entered into a relationship with Hayden Clark.
Yes.
How long did you know Clark?
About 3 months.
And during this time, the bond with Lancaster gave way to infatuation for Clark. Please answer the question.
Yes.
Did Lancaster do anything to lose your affection?
No.
You simply transferred it to Clark.
Not simply.
Did you anticipate trouble when Lancaster found out?
Well, I knew he'd be upset.
What was his attitude when he arrived back in Miami?
He was tired, disillusioned, and sad.
What was your belief when you were shown the alleged suicide note?
I had no belief.
Did you not say when questioned that Lancaster's code of honor would not have permitted him to write that note?
I believe I did say that, yes.
Were you shocked to find it a forgery?
Yes.
Did Lancaster say, "I'm going to bluff this out"?
He did not. He went to your office voluntarily to admit he had written the note.
But did he not earlier ask you to destroy it?
I can't remember.
You're on oath, Mrs. Miller. I'll ask you again. Did he suggest destroying the note?
Yes.
Before anyone else had seen it?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller, you were attracted to Hayden Clark?
Yes.
He was good looking?
Yes.
Young?
He told me he was 32. He was really 26.
But he was bright, well educated?
Well, he told me he was a graduate of Columbia University, but like other things, proved not to be true.
What other things?
He said he was divorced. He wasn't. He said he'd worked on magazines, and he hadn't.
When did you find this out?
In the last few days of his life.
Mrs. Miller, this attraction for Hayden Clark, did it begin before Captain Lancaster left?
Yes.
Did you have sexual relations with him while Lancaster was still living in the house?
No.
Well, how soon after he left did it happen?
Several weeks.
Did you feel a traitor knowing that Captain Lancaster had gone out to try and earn money for you? Did you feel you betrayed him when you wrote to him and sent your love? But then you didn't write often, did you?
No.
He kept asking for news, begging for letters, but you were too preoccupied. You know, he went hungry at times, but he sent you every dollar that he could raise, while you had sexual relations with Clark.
Mr. Carson.
You were a willing partner in this affair.
Yes.
The witness will speak up.
She said, yes, Your Honor, she was a willing partner. Did the relations continue?
Yes.
Did they increase or decrease in ardor?
Increase.
Daily?
Yes.
Nightly?
Yes.
And they continued until Captain Lancaster returned?
No.
They stopped before that?
Yes, a week before.
Why? Why suddenly, Mrs. Miller, did this self-confessed passionate interlude come to an end?
Because Hayden admitted to me that he had a disease.
What disease? Now speak up, Mrs. Miller. What disease?
Syphilis.
Your Honor, The witness has been on the stand all day. Perhaps this would be a convenient time to recess.
I dare say, Mr. Carson. The court is adjourned until 10 a.m. tomorrow.
I had to do it, Bill. I told her it had to be like that.
Not like that. Surely to God, not like that.
If you're to get off, if, they gotta have someone to blame.
Mrs. Miller, you told us yesterday the man for whom you'd formed an affection, the man with whom you'd had sexual relations, admitted to you he had syphilis.
Yes.
Was this a new infection?
No, he'd contracted it several years before. He thought he was cured.
And it was a traumatic shock to him to find out that he wasn't.
Yes.
And to you? What effect did it have on you?
Well, I felt disgusted, angry, very angry. I felt unclean.
Yes.
And then after a while, I began to realize it was something in his past, something he thought was done with and cured. And I forgave him.
Mrs. Miller, did you get the disease?
No.
You've been medically examined?
Twice. Once by my own doctor.
And the other time?
When I was in custody for the preliminary questions, I was examined by a police doctor.
With your permission?
No, it was against my will.
But it also confirmed that you had not been infected.
That's correct.
Mrs. Miller, was Hayden Clark a heavy drinker?
Very heavy.
And was he allowed to drink after the disease reappeared?
No, the doctor warned him he must not.
Did this upset him?
It made him very edgy and depressed.
Mrs. Miller, did Hayden Clark take drugs?
Yes.
What drugs?
He smoked reefers, marijuana, and sometimes used opium.
Order! You have not painted a very attractive picture of the deceased, Mrs. Miller.
I've been asked questions. I've answered them.
He had an unacceptable disease. He was a drunkard, a drug addict. He lied to you about his divorce, about his age, his writing, his education. And yet, you still planned to marry him.
I was in a situation that I couldn't control. He pleaded with me not to let him down. I felt sorry for him. He was sometimes like a child if he didn't get his own way.
No more questions at this time.
Did you, in fact, still intend to marry Mrs. Miller?
Well, I'm not sure. I was trying to make up my mind.
Did you still love him?
Well, I was upset about his lies. I was disillusioned.
Was he aware of this?
Yes.
In what mood was he that night he went to bed?
He said he was afraid.
Of Lancaster?
No, of losing me. He said he felt as if he were going crazy.
Mrs. Miller, who do you believe killed Hayden Clark?
I believe he killed himself, but it was my fault. He killed himself because of me.
Order.
No further questions. You may step down.
Miami, King Station of the Keys, 10:30 news time. Today in Dade County Courthouse, here in the heart of Miami, the trial of Captain Bill Lancaster continued.
Want to move?
We could get you into the Everglades Hotel. Janice arrange it?
No, I'm not going to let a few hoodlums frighten me.
I really think Mr. Carson is right.
Thanks, Janice, but no. And don't tell Bill about this, please.
Mrs. Miller, you made a statement to this court that you believe Hayden Clark killed himself. That he killed himself because of you.
Yes,
And that's a terrible responsibility to take upon yourself. The death of a fellow human being.
I'm aware of that.
You're very fond of Captain Lancaster, aren't you?
I've already told you we've been good friends for many years.
And lovers.
Yes, and lovers.
Do you still love him? Mrs. Miller.
Well, not in that sense.
What sense?
A physical sense.
But you have a special bond of companionship, you told us that.
Yes.
And you are anxious not to see him convicted.
Well, naturally, because I believe he's innocent.
Although he lied to you, didn't he, about the suicide note?
Yes.
He lied and said he found it there written by Hayden.
Yes.
And asked you to destroy it.
Yes.
And lied to me when first questioned about the note.
I believe so.
In your evidence, you said that Hayden Clark's lies had disillusioned you.
Yes.
That he lied about his illness, his education, his divorce, his age. He did lie, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
And what of the defendant's lies? Have they disillusioned you? Have they convinced you that Captain William Newton Lancaster might not be the upright, honorable man you always imagined him to be?
Objection, Your Honor.
Overruled.
Mrs. Miller, do you consider Captain Lancaster to be an upright and honorable man?
Yes, I do.
A man who would not normally tell lies?
That's right.
Not normally, and yet he did lie, didn't he, on this occasion?
Yes.
Thank you. Your witness.
No questions.
You may step down, Mrs. Miller.
Yeah, I met Bill in New Orleans on his way back to Miami.
And how did he seem, Mr. Upton?
Well, he seemed fine. Same as ever. I asked after Chubbie. He said she was great. Everything was normal.
Did he borrow money?
Yeah, that was normal, too. Well, what I mean is, this time, I lent him. Often, times past, he lent me. Guys who fly together understand each other. No, he and Chubbie are good people.
Thank you.
Yesterday was the day the Eagles came to town, as the Miami Herald said this morning. 4 world-famous air aces came to court to give evidence of their great affection and respect for Bill Lancaster. Today, the case goes into its 10th day with Lancaster himself to take the stand. This is Jack Weir from the Dade County Courthouse with the compliments of...
Lurline, the lingerie with a difference. I always make mine Lurline.
Come, Lancaster. Did you or did you not kill Hayden Clark?
I did not.
Do you love Mrs. Miller?
Very much.
Do you still love her?
Yes.
Would you steal for her?
I have.
What did you steal?
Chickens, ducks, a rabbit.
For dinner?
Well, not the rabbit. He was supposed to be for dinner, but Chubbie, Mrs. Miller, she named him Oscar Wilde and we kept him as a pet.
Captain, would you do anything for Chubbie?
Yes.
Would you lie for her?
Yes.
Would you kill for her?
Yes.
Did you kill for her?
No.
And why did you forge the suicide note?
Because I was frightened.
Please explain that.
When I woke up and heard the shot, the thought flashed through my mind that Chubbie might think I was to blame. I wrote that note for her. I didn't stop to think it might become evidence. It was for her. Nobody else.
On a fatal night, you and Hayden talked before you went to sleep?
Yes. He asked me about the gun. I said a lawyer, Ernest Houston, had given it to me. He asked if it was loaded. I said yes. Then he said, "Can we talk? There are things I have to tell you."
What did he tell you?
That he had syphilis.
Syphilis? And what else did he tell you?
He was afraid it couldn't be cured. That Chubbie wouldn't marry him until it was cured. I haven't told anybody this before. I had no wish to assassinate his character.
The responsibility for this line of questioning rests with me. You're under oath to tell the truth. What else?
That he'd lied about his age. That he couldn't write the book. That he'd been married twice and hadn't got a divorce. There were things that even Chubbie didn't know. I told him that he would have to confess everything to her in the morning.
You talked for a long time?
About half an hour, I think. In the middle of it, I must have fallen asleep.
You'd had a long flight that day?
Yes, a long flight and a bad one.
What was the, next thing you remember?
A sound, like a window banging. I switched on the light and saw the blood. Saw poor old Hayden.
Captain Lancaster, who killed Hayden Clark?
He committed suicide.
In your presence?
I didn't see him do it.
Was it in your presence?
It must have been. I was in the same room.
You admit you wrote this note?
Yes.
Are you as positive it is your work now as you were positive 14 weeks ago that it was not?
I lied to you. I later confessed the truth.
Why was the gun kept loaded?
I don't know. It was given to me that way.
You claim that Hayden Clark was in a disturbed state of mind.
Very disturbed.
Yet, you left a loaded gun within reach.
I didn't think about it.
You were tired.
Yes.
Exhausted.
Completely.
Yet a brief time later, awoken by the shot, you had the presence of mind to write a note to Chubbie. You were under strain.
I was shocked.
Would you describe your condition as panicky?
Yes, that would be correct.
You say you had a liking for Hayden Clark.
I was fond of him. I trusted him.
Yet you sat and typed out a note while this man you were fond of bled and moaned in his death throes? Can you explain that?
No.
Would you call it the act of a very unfeeling man?
I expect I would.
Mr. Lavender, you were a friend of Hayden Clark?
Yes, sir. We were, drinking buddies.
Did you know Mrs. K. Louisa Clark?
I did.
Would you tell us, please, how you knew her?
She was Hayden's wife.
Do you know a Mrs. Virginia Clark?
Yes, sir.
In what capacity?
She was Hayden's other wife.
Was Hayden Clark divorced?
Not as far as I know.
Did he admit to you that he had bigamously married Virginia Clark?
Yes, sir.
Was he concerned that this was against the law?
Not Hayden. He seemed to think it was kind of a joke until he met Chubbie, Mrs. Miller. Then he wanted to get divorced so he could properly marry her.
Your Honor, if the court pleases, I submit 2 marriage certificates. The one dated July the 21st, 1929 to K. Louisa McKinley, The other dated September the 12th, 1931, to Virginia Lawton.
Exhibits E and F, Your Honor.
Thank you. Have them so marked.
Mr. Lavender, did the deceased have any other habits that you were aware of?
You mean the dope?
Tell the court, please.
Sometimes he tried opium, mostly smoked marijuana cigarettes.
Did he ever talk of suicide?
Once. Hayden said if you wanted to kill yourself, the best way was a shot in the head. He said death was instantaneous.
Did he ever say that he might commit suicide?
If he was in a jam, he said he would.
Your witness.
Your name is Richard Lavender, and you are a freelance writer. Have you had any work published lately?
No, sir.
Have you ever had any work published?
No, sir.
You have been receiving subsistence from the Department of Veterans Affairs?
Yes, sir.
You have been treated for alcoholism?
Yes, sir.
Was Hayden Clark cheerful the last time you saw him?
I guess so.
Then he was not in a suicidal frame of mind?
No.
That's all.
Mr. Lavender, did Hayden Clark confide to you his feelings for Mrs. Miller?
Yes, he did. He told me he loved her. He said it was for real this time.
Was he concerned that he would have to tell her about his bigamous marriage and his disease?
He was scared he'd lose her. He was really worked up about that.
Dr. Talman, did you attend the autopsy of Hayden Clark at the request of the defense?
I did, sir.
And have you an exhibit with you from that autopsy?
I have.
Kindly hand the exhibit to the witness. Thank you, Doctor. You may show the jury. Will you tell His Honor and the jury, is that the skull of the deceased?
It is.
Dr. Hamilton, what is your business?
A ballistic criminologist.
How many years' experience have you had in this work?
47.
And how many homicide cases have you been called in to determine the cause of death?
284.
Is there any way in your vast experience to determine if death by shooting is suicide or homicide?
Sometimes it's very simple. In other cases, impossible.
In your expert opinion, can you come to a conclusion in this case?
No, I would say so.
Will you tell us your findings?
Give this skull to the jury, and please hand me Exhibit B. Microscopic examination of this gun sight showed a residue of blood tissue and smokeless powder. Now, that means this gun was jammed tight against the head when the trigger was pulled. Now, on the skull, the jury will see scorch marks and burns. You will also see from the damage to the skull evidence of a big explosion inside the head, again pointing to the gun being jammed tight against the head like this. Now, no man, even in sleep, will not flinch away from danger. And no one could have fired this gun so tightly jammed against the head unless he had the dead man's head in a vice. No, sir. In my opinion, there was no homicide. The hand that held this gun belonged to the deceased.
court pleases. Gentlemen of the jury, when I was a boy attending high school, I learnt by heart a declamation. Just as an oak, stripped of its foliage by winter, stands forth in mighty grandeur against the sky, so Robert E. Lee, stripped of all his rank, towered above the earth and those around him. If you will permit a paraphrase, William Newton Lancaster, many thousands of miles from his home, for months confined in a lonely cell, penniless, deserted by most, but not all his friends, stands forth in sheer nobility of character as a brilliant diamond against the sorry background of this trial. Be very clear. He is not charged with his love of Mrs. Miller, or he could be convicted. He is not charged with stealing chickens, or he would be convicted. He is on trial for the murder of Hayden Clark. And because the state has not been able to prove his guilt, he should not be convicted. Hayden Clark was a young man of apparent charm whose life had gone astray. A writer who could not write, a drinker not allowed to drink, a bigamist, a drug addict who could not afford his drugs. He suffered from a recurring disease which he feared was incurable. Little wonder that he tried to live with all of this, and in the end, he could not live with it. The boy was dead and buried without an autopsy. A strange admission for the state. If my client was guilty, a fortunate one for him. Yet, who was it who signed the request for the disinterment and autopsy? Why, the accused did. Was this the act of a man with something to fear? Or was it, more likely, the natural response of a man with nothing to hide? And now, we come to Mrs. Miller. I want to say I feel sorry for her, but I admire her courage that was known only to a small band of aviators. The courage that kept her in this state and brought her to this courtroom. But she told the truth. Her story could not be shaken, even by the state's attorney. Now, Mrs. Miller may not live up to your standards of chastity and virtue, but Mrs. Miller is not a liar. Trials are not mere contests of skill. Trials are more than games between opposing lawyers. If I thought that we're indulging herein was mere trickery, mere tactics, I'd have long since ago found myself another profession. The only purpose of a court is to determine, as far as humanly possible, the true facts. We, that is you and I, owe our society one duty: to see that truth prevails, the innocent are protected, and to all are given equal and exact justice before the law. I ask of you this: weigh the evidence, consider it, and with a verdict of not guilty, send word back to old England, from whence we got our common law, that in American courts justice is still done, that it is administered in a high, fair, and solemn fashion for which our fathers fought and shed their blood.
Jury's coming back.
Anxiously await the jury's verdict, which will decide the fate of Captain Bill Lancaster in the sensational Hayden Clark murder trial. The jury is now filing back. I can't tell. They look solemn and uneasy. It could go either way. The judge will soon enter the courtroom and call for the jury's verdict.
Would you like a cup of coffee, Mrs. Miller?
The juror's back.
Have you agreed upon your verdict?
We have.
The clerk will read the verdict.
Not guilty.
We were never in any doubt that truth would prevail. We knew what the verdict of the jury must be weeks ago. I have seen the face of Hayden Clark in several visions, and he repeatedly told me that my son Billy was innocent.
That is all.
Mrs. Lancaster?
Thank you very much for attending.
Mrs. Lancaster Jr., will you be seeing Captain Lancaster in the near future?
I hope so.
Naturally, they will meet. They are, after all, husband and wife.
Captain Lancaster. Mrs. Miller.
That's what you want.
My name is Rogers, FBI.
What have we done?
Overstayed your welcome, or so it seems. I have orders here to tell you that if you do not make arrangements to leave the United States, you will be deported. Good afternoon.
Mrs. Miller, are you going to marry Captain Lancaster?
Will you be seeing him when you reach England?
Why aren't you returning to Australia, Mrs. Miller?
I want to start a new life.
With Captain Lancaster.
Isn't it true he's gone ahead to England to get a divorce?
Will you marry him?
Please. Captain Lancaster is going to discuss the matter with his wife. If and when he is free, I'll marry him.
Yes? Whatever the New York press has said, or whatever Mrs. Miller may have stated, is of no consequence. I have been asked to say, on behalf of my daughter-in-law, that there is not, and never has been, any question of divorce. Goodbye.
I hardly knew them. You've grown into fine girls.
Yes.
You deserve all the credit for that.
It hasn't been easy.
No. No, I expect not.
Bill, I can't give you a divorce.
Because my mother hates Chubbie.
Your parents have helped me financially with the children. I imagine that would stop. Then there's my job. I've been told I'd lose the post as a divorced person. And of course there's the church.
It's rather formidable opposition, taken in all.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Cartwright. This was a rotten idea. Not the right place at all.
Never mind. The old dump brings back memories. It was the first night we met.
That party in Baker Street.
Bill, your life would have been so much better if we hadn't met.
Don't say that, my love. It isn't true.
Isn't it?
I'd have ended up running another garage or giving flying lessons. What we did, nobody can take away from us.
That's right. Whatever mess we made of things, at least we weren't ignored. Did you get that job?
No. They said I hadn't enough flying experience.
Bastards.
Oh, it's the same with every job. Nobody talks about the trial, but they've all heard of it. Lucky old Lancaster. How did he get off? Chubbie got him a good lawyer.
Stop it.
I can see it in their polite faces. I can feel it between the shoulders. Whenever my back is turned. I can especially feel it in here. I used to be so proud to belong to this club. Remember?
Bill.
Now I come here out of defiance. And I can't really bear it. And they all manage not to look at me. Somehow find items of great interest in the newspapers whenever I stop and seem as if I might speak to them.
Damn them. Who cares?
I do.
Yes, I know you do.
Even you must wonder, Sometimes.
What?
Even you.
You stop it? Let's get out of this bloody place. I never did like it. Bunch of snobs, fossils. Taxidermists could stuff them, and even then they wouldn't notice.
Damn machine. Colonial. Always colonial. Thank you.
Bill, you can move in here with me if you want. To hell with what anyone thinks.
Well, that's a kind offer.
Kind. Don't talk balls.
I've got to make people forget. There's only one way to do that. In the air. Smithy's plane is for sale.
The Southern Cross Miner.
I can raise the money. The family will help. I want to smash the record. London to Cape Town.
Bill, that plane's not fast enough.
20 miles an hour slower. Well, no matter. If I navigate accurately, in short stops.
You haven't flown for nearly a year.
You think I've forgotten how?
That's over some bad territory.
Oh, the more dangerous, the better. I'll take the direct route. Barcelona, Colombe Shah, Trans-Sahara.
What about maps?
I could fly blindfold. I hedge-hop my way across the desert to Gal. It's flat all the way. Flat as a pint of yesterday's champagne.
You're a fool. Do you really mean to do it?
Smash the record down to the Cape and back again. I'll give them something different to talk about. You wait.
Well, you can do it if anybody can. Thank you. Hello?
Hello.
Hello.
You all right?
Yes?
Just wanted to say thanks. I'll see you soon.
I hope so.
When I get back.
Take care. And Bill.
What?
Promise me. If anything happens, if you come down, stay by your plane. I'll find you. Just promise me.
I promise. I'd better go. Good night.
Good night.
instant, monsieur. But...
No, thank you, I can't. I'm 6 hours behind. I've got to make up time.
C'est impossible. Magnus, you cannot fly the Sahara without clear visibility.
I'll fly in the compass.
And soon it will be dark.
I should reach Gare by 3 o'clock in the morning. Could you telegraph them, please, and ask them to rig a light on the airfield? Thank you, Monsieur Burrell.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Here is the 9 o'clock news from the BBC Home Service. There is still no word of aviator Captain Lancaster, whose failure to arrive at Gao in French West Africa yesterday has given rise to anxiety. A search is being mounted in the area. The French military authorities are said to be organizing a land and air search which is due to commence as soon as conditions are favorable. The Viceroy of...
Look, Mac, I came here for help, not photos.
A picture on tomorrow's front page. Chubbie Miller seeks plane to search for Lancaster. That's how I can help you.
The bloody French are sending motor vehicles. Cars, for God's sakes. You know they've complained about the search and the cost of it.
Ah, Chubbie slates French. Get that down. Will you fly the plane?
Oh, yes. Just get me one.
The sun is up again. Hotter than yesterday, if that is possible. I now realize this period of agony in the Sahara is going to be as long to my mind as my whole lifetime. Truly, I am atoning for any wrong done on Earth. I don't want to die. I want desperately to live. I'm going to ration my water. 1 pint a day. My life depends on strict rationing. And on staying by the plane, no matter what. The French will search, or Chubbie will come. I know I can last a week, but pray God it won't be that long. Flares every half hour once darkness comes. They can see them for miles in the desert. The important thing, the really vital thing, is not to be afraid. I estimate I am 20 miles off course. And once they begin to search, they'll very quickly find me. It is clear I am further off course than I thought. The flares were a success. They burnt brilliantly. But no one saw them. I used a lot of matches. It's important to keep an account of time. This is Good Friday, April the 14th, the 3rd day. Come soon, my love.
Mrs. Miller, if I could do anything for you, I would. We have no staff, no planes airworthy. It's the Easter weekend.
What's that got to do with it?
My people are on holiday. Even if I had a plane, it wouldn't be ready before Tuesday.
The extremes of temperature are terrible. Boiling by day, freezing by night. And thirst. I never knew it could be like this. I've got to be strong. Dear God. Chubbie, bring me bath water. Filthy bath water, and I'll drink it all.
This is the only one available, Chubbie. It's just damn bad luck we had to start a major service. It'll take at least another 2 weeks to have it ready.
What about de Havilland's or the Air Force?
We can try, but I don't think you're going to get much cooperation.
Why not, for God's sakes. I can find him.
Maybe, but you know what Bill's parents told the papers? Well, they said that any attempt by you to mount a rescue would be against their wishes.
The 6th day. Blessed cool before the night cold. I have one more match, or one more flare. The poor old plane. I've had to tear off so much fabric she looks like a broken-backed duck with lots of feathers missing. Chubbie, darling, I've kept my promise and stuck by the ship.
We are not at all worried, Mrs. Miller. There's no reason for you to concern yourself. The French are searching.
In motor cars. There's 1,000 miles of desert.
We have faith. Our son is in splendid physical condition.
You know that's not true. Mrs. Lancaster, Sister Red Rose, why don't you get off your knees and tell me you'd rather your son die than me try and find him, because that's what it is.
You're upset, Mrs. Miller, or you wouldn't make such wild statements.
Please let me help. Don't stop me finding a plane.
All that can be done is being done.
You just don't know what the desert's like. You've got no idea.
We have nothing else to say, Mrs. Miller.
Look, the heat burns, but he'll fight to stay alive, and he'll count on me to try and find him. Oh, dear God, let me help.
Let you help? You?
Please.
Like you helped him turn his back on his loved ones, to abandon his wife and children, and to embroil him in a sordid, sickening case. The day you walked into my house, Mrs. Miller, to help my son, was the last day any of us had one moment of happiness.
I can find him. I swear to you.
We'd better go now.
Look, he'll stay by the wreck. That plane, the Southern Cross miner, has a compass bias. It swings west to west-southwest. The Red Rose had the same fault. Don't you see? I could find him. At least I'd have a chance, but you're preventing me even finding a plane.
I'll see you out.
Don't do this, please.
Make her leave us, Edward.
Come along, Mrs. Miller.
Look, if he's found, I swear, I'll never see him again.
We have no fear. Our son has courage and stamina. And he has our prayers.
The beginning of the 8th day has dawned. It is still cool. I have no water. I am waiting patiently. Come soon, please. Come soon.
A French military patrol found the body of Bill Lancaster in 1962. It was 29 years after his crash, and 8-day vigil in the desert. Chubbie Miller eventually remarried and settled in England. She died in 1972.